Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today because I have a great guest. I mean, you guys are going to love what this guy has to say, because those of you who know that most of the passions of true progressives is that we do come to the realization that healthcare is a right, that healthcare should not be just for those people who think, oh my God, let's hope we can afford it. That isn't it. And you know what? We are coming to that realization. The problem is, for many times, is that we don't have those who are out there who people respect. You know, there are a lot of times that people who support these issues, oh, they're so far left and they don't have that gravitas and that where it is that people know this is what you want. So today, we're going to change that with a particular person, a particular economist that we're going to be interviewing. So that is going to be at the first part of our show after I get into some introductions, etc., etc., etc. We are going to bring you the Economist. But beforehand, I just want to talk a little bit about why I was absent for the last 2 or 3 days. I did a test from Washington, D.C., just a little thing to make sure that, to make sure that I could communicate over there. But I mean, the conference was so all intensive that it wasn't, I couldn't quite come at 3 o'clock Central Time to do the show and leave the conference. And not only that, but I had several interviews that I did with attendees of the conference, both Democrats and Republicans and nonpartisan organizations. I mean, we all came together at the Bridge Alliance is the name of the organization, run by Debbie Lynn Molyneux, who is the co-director with David Nevins, who I think is one of the major funders. But what it showed, I'm going to tell you guys a little story about Bridge Alliance in a little bit. But what I want to say is that, folks, don't despair with all the things that you are hearing on TV right now. And for those who are feeling, oh, or things are so bad and things are not going to get better or anything like that, all I have to say is this: don't despair. And the reason I'm saying this is because, man, we have, first of all, a lot of people out there. There are a lot of people out there working very hard on the ground. They're not making it on ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, or any of these stations, but they're out there. And you know where we were? Many of us that are doing these things were out there in Washington, D.C. over the last 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I tell you something. I left there refreshed, positive, knowing that things were about to get started. That not only get started, but things were going to be getting done, and that people were there who were going to go out there and start making changes. I mean, let me tell you how I know change is also in the air. Last year we had the Bridge Alliance, and the Bridge Alliance, it looked nothing like America the very first time it occurred. It looked nothing like America. And people who went to the conference started to say, we need to find out, we want a conference that really looked like America, that represents America. I've been with, I've been to hundreds of conferences. This is the first conference that after its first year of existence, taking in all the information where people said we needed to make these changes, that they went out there and in the second year had a conference that looked like America, had a conference with activists that are all over the country, all over the grounds, doing the necessary work to move things forward. It was wonderful, the conference, and later on we're going to talk about it over the next several weeks. I'm going to be bringing interviews that I did there. I have to first prepare them for the Bridge Alliance, and after I'm done preparing them for the Bridge Alliance, they'll be shown here as well. But I want all of you guys to start looking into this organization, the Bridge Alliance. Look up Bridge Alliance, because it is the up-and-coming movement that's going to put a lot of these organizations on all sides working together to accomplish something positive. You're going to hear a 40-minute interview that I did sometime later on next week or the week after with a Republican, and he's a staunch Republican, and I'm a staunch progressive, and we had great conversation on air. On tape. You're going to see that. So there's going to be a lot to see. Folks, no despair needed, because ultimately America is going to win. And how is America going to win? When we start with empowering people to elect those who really represent the values, the progressive values that are really innate to the spirit of every American. But anyhow, what is the show going to be about today? Today, the title of the show is Economist Validates Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All tax question answer. And we brought that economist into Politics Done Right. And as soon as I'm done the introduction here to the show, you're going to see the economist, and it's a wonderful interview, and you'll understand much. And then we'll come back with the blog of the week that goes into it a little bit further. Economist Dr. Dean Baker did not mince words as he validated the manner in which Senator Elizabeth Warren answers the tax question on Medicare for All. He did not at all. Dr. Dean Baker, Elizabeth Warren forcing the correct question on Medicare for All. Repeating, what Elizabeth Warren is doing is forcing the mainstream media not to ask the question that the plutocracy would like asked to fool you or to scare you or to instill fear in you. She is forcing the question. Yes, Bernie Sanders came out and said, yes, I'm going to increase your taxes for Medicare for All. And Bernie is absolutely right. But it's the right answer to the wrong question. And just coming out that way doesn't inform the American people as they need or should be informed or as they deserve to be informed. So, for too long, the mainstream media has been given a pass for being the patsy of the plutocracy. Many times they ask loaded questions with an intent to mislead, and in doing so placate their masters, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the healthcare industrial complex, the energy industrial complex, and every other monopolistic consortium in between. It is imperative that we support every candidate that buck the system. I need to correct that. The system in a manner that supports the citizenry. If a question is intent on misleading, call it out, as she has with the Medicare for All questions about increased taxes. Dr. Dean Baker will provide the definitive take on how one should look at health care. And it's clear Medicare for All is the answer. It is clear Medicare for All is the answer. And by the way, in this same blog post, there is an article from Common Dreams by that talks about Jayapal, Representative Pramila Jayapal. Jayapal calls out 2020 Democrats who attack Medicare for All with arguments of Republicans and insurance companies. We must call them all out In fact, a few of them will soon land on a website called Failed Democrats very soon. Because any Democrat who starts to use Republican arguments and insurance companies' arguments against a policy that ensures all Americans have health care, that person is no person. Well, I'm going to leave that right there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the program. And let's go ahead and get started with the professor. Actually, it's not a professor. With Dr. Dean Baker. So let me cue that video up with Dr. Dean Baker. I think you're going to find it quite enlightening. It's a very important video. Please also remember, share this show, share these videos, because folks, it's not coming from the mainstream media. Today I just saw an interview with that Ali Velshi gave to what's her name? The person who Hillary Clinton called out. Anyhow, he gave an interview, and I said, my God, it is great to see journalists who are real journalists for a change. Anyhow, here it is, and before we get started or move on. So folks, without further ado, please welcome Dean Baker, Economist Dr. Dean Baker. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here today with Dr. Dean Baker. He's a senior economist with the Center for Economic and Policy Research. He is the co-founder, in fact, of this group. His areas of research include housing and macroeconomics, intellectual property, social security, Medicare, and European labor markets. He is the author of several books, including Rigged, one that is a must-read, Getting Back to Full Employment, and several others. Dr. Dean Baker, it is my pleasure to have you on board. Welcome to Politics Done Right.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely. So now recently, one of the reasons that I contacted you is that recently you wrote an article for the Huffington Post with regards to rents, with regards to patents, and why is it that within our Medicare system, our Medicare for all, what we're talking about Medicare for all, you thought that Elizabeth Warren was actually doing the right thing in the way that she decided to frame the discussion around it. So first of all, why don't you explain to us your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, most immediately, there's been this big, ruckus, at least among the people who are following the Democratic primaries closely. Elizabeth Warren has frequently been asked by reporters, are you going to raise taxes to pay for Medicare for all? And she repeatedly says costs will go down. So they asked her, well, does that mean you raise taxes? And she keeps going, cost for middle-income people will go down. And this is being reported as an evasive answer. And I originally, I'm policy wonk, I want to hear, okay, lay it out. And gave it more thought, and I thought, no, this is exactly the right answer. And these reporters are playing this kind of gotcha game. We want to get you to say you're going to raise taxes, and then we're going to run around saying Elizabeth Warren's going to raise taxes. Well, most people, I understand. You have people that just hate taxes. They don't care. They don't want to pay taxes. They don't care if they're getting free education. They don't care free Medicare, free health care. Raise my taxes, that's the end of the world. That's not most people, and certainly not most people who are going to be voting in the Democratic primary. They care about their costs. And that's exactly what Elizabeth Warren is saying she's going to answer. Now, she doesn't have a fully developed plan. I know she said she's working on one, and we'll see it when it's out. But she's focusing on costs. So if you tell typical middle-class person that for their family, they're going to pay another $5,000 in taxes. On the other hand, they're going to see their insurance premiums, including those paid by their employer, fall by $10,000, along with their co-pays, their deductibles, or other costs. I think most people will be very, very happy with that story. But they want just to be a story of taxes. And there's no reason for her to play that game. She's teaching reporters how they should cover the issue. Talk about what matters to the people who are going to be voting.
I think that is so important. Now, you took it a step further. And I think what you did, you explain it in the form of the other costs by having private health care by having drug costs based on patenting, etc. It is a very difficult subject in the manner in which you say it in a shorthand manner. Rents and what the cost of having a monopoly on a drug. Can you try to express that in a form that everyday Americans can understand that, in effect, they are paying a huge tax to private corporations, not only because we as American citizens have post-developed most of the drugs that they have out there, but also because they have a right to charge as much as they have because competition is kept out of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's something that people have a hard time getting their hands around, primarily, I think, because it's reported so poorly. The way in which the government pays for most research in developing new drugs is by giving patent monopolies. And people have a hard time, because we talk about them all the time, like they're just there. Well, they aren't just there. The government gives them out. And the way I would argue, and I think it really is just the only logical way to think about it, is we could think of the government as alternative ways to pay for things. And in the case of prescription drugs, we actually do spend about 45, might be as much as 50 billion a year on biomedical research, primarily through the National Institutes of Health, but we also have the Centers for Disease Control, various other agencies. It might get as high as 50 billion. I haven't seen the latest figure. On the other hand, the private sector, private industry pays for a lot, and they're awarded with patent monopolies. So that's the way the government pays for prescription drugs. We tell Pfizer, we tell Merck, we tell the other drug companies, go out and develop drugs, and then we'll give you a patent monopoly so you could charge whatever you feel like it. You aren't subject to competition. So that is literally how we pay for it. So when we hear these stories that someone has cancer, life-threatening cancer, and there's a drug that may help them, but it costs $150,000, $200,000. It doesn't cost $150,000, $200,000. That's what the drug company is able to charge because the government gave them a monopoly. We'll arrest anyone who competes with them in the market. Actually, what it costs them to manufacture it, almost invariably, drugs are cheap. It's $300, $400, $500. We know that. We know what generic drugs cost. So the government's imposed this enormous burden on people with its patent monopolies, and instead of treating that as, oh, that was something the government did, we treat somehow that that's a fact of nature, and then we turn around and then, oh, and now the government wants to interfere with it, and you go, no, that's 180 degrees wrong.
Now, interestingly, when we talk about patents or whatever, you had an interesting solution, and coming from an economist of your caliber, a capitalist, all the works, you actually played into my domain, if you will, because you said, suppose instead of giving the drug monopoly to the pharmaceuticals, the government just decided to pay for the research. The government just decided to pay for all these things. Invariably, the drugs would be cheaper. I want a response to that, and then I want to tie a more important question to that thereafter.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So suppose, again, we have numbers from the industry. They spend roughly $70 billion a year on research, give or take. So suppose we'll pay for that up front. And we could even pay it to Pfizer, pay it to Merck. That's fine. I mean, I wouldn't have the government, create the government commissar of drug research. Pay it, have them bid for it, just like, I'm not a big fan of the military necessarily, but, they do develop weapon systems. So you do it like a weapon system, give them a 10, 12-year contract. You're going to do research on cancer drugs. The other company's going to do research on diabetes drugs, whatever it might be. And all the research is fully public. So as they're doing it, what that means is other researchers can benefit by it. And then when it comes out, a finished product, it's in the public domain. It'll sell as a generic for a few $100s. Totally gets rid of this problem of high drug prices, which is just an absurd situation we create for ourselves, because this isn't just, oh, do I want the new iPhone or something? It's people's life, it's people's health, and it is only a problem because this is how we've decided to finance prescription drug research.
In effect, then, an economy isn't divinely designed. It's actually designed by human beings. And so we can make it however we want to make it. And in that light, the question that I have is, shouldn't we decide to have a bifurcated economy? In other words, there is a portion of the economy where we should minimize profits for the better good. In other words, as you said, have the government fully develop, pay for the development of drugs, have the government work on developing doctors, make it be a private side that does it, but have all these issues solved on one side that really makes things like healthcare a right and that everybody has equal access to healthcare. Why don't we bifurcate our economy in a manner like that actually is humane?
Well, I think it's both humane, but it's also, just to be the economist here, I would also just say it's efficient. I mean, that's not the highest goal here. We want to make sure people have health care, but the current system we have is unbelievably wasteful. I mean, anyone who's ever had to deal with themselves or someone in their family has a serious illness, the billing, all the hoops you have to go through, that's not about giving people health care. Giving people health care is the doctor, the nurse's assistants, looking after them, giving them the drugs they need, the medical equipment. That's the giving them health care. All the hoops that we've created because of, really just a very convoluted system, that's just complete waste. So, I mean, of course, our first focus is making sure people get the health care, but we've added this enormous layer of waste that does no one any good except for the people who make a lot of money off it. But it's not providing a service to the economy or to the people.
Increasing entropy always allows others to make a hell of a lot of money, and all the vested interests right now are in here trying to protect it. So I want to ask that question again. Should we then have a bifurcated economy where we decide there's a portion that is fine to have free laissez-faire type markets, but then there is a portion that really should be not profit-based, but controlled for the better good of the American citizens and, hell, the citizens of the world?
Yeah, no, the only reason why I'm hesitant with bifurcated is because I guess what I just say is you want different rules for different areas. So clearly we want different rules for healthcare than for producing iPhones. And even though we don't guarantee everyone healthcare now, we do recognize, I mean, we do have Medicaid for low-income people. We do ostensibly recognize that people should be able to get healthcare. We do a very, very poor job of that. But again, no one I've heard of has proposed that we have a special program to make sure everyone has an iPhone. So we already recognize that. We just do a very, very poor job of it.
Now, lastly, what would I'm pretty sure based on where you stand, you support Medicare for all. If you had to make the pitch to the American population, and look, you know how economists work. You're an expert. You can talk about marginal propensity to consume and all these other things. The problem is most Americans aren't there, and they're easily frightened. As an economist talking to the American people, tell them why Medicare for all is the option they should choose, and that private insurance companies are likely the most inefficient method of paying for the product. Or not, I can't believe I use product for health care.
Paying for healthcare. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess what I'd say is that what we're interested in is making sure that people get health care. And private insurers do provide health care, but it's a very ineffective method. And people have had to deal with their insurers know that. I mean, again, if you're in very good health and haven't had much occasion to deal with them, then it doesn't matter to you much one way or the other. But most people, if not themselves, someone in their family has had to deal with insurers. And again, this is an unnecessary layer. So what we want is the minimum amount of bureaucracy, if you like, getting between people and the healthcare providers. And the private insurers are a massive layer of bureaucracy. And I could say this part as an employer, so it's not just from the standpoint of the patient. They have to deal with the insurer, whether they'll pay for their drug company. But as an employer, we have consultants. I'm no longer the co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research, but I was for 18 years. Mm-hmm. We had consultants that helped us navigate the insurance system. And frankly, there was no reason for us to be involved in our employees' insurance at all, but that's the way the world's set up. So you have layer after layer after layer of bureaucracy in this system, which if you had a universal Medicare type system, that's all gone. So we're talking about getting people health care in the most effective possible way. And Medicare does that well. It's not perfect, but it's done a very good job at this point for 50 years, for at least the over 65 and the disabled population, we'd like to do it for the whole population.
And interestingly, we hadn't even talked about the doctors' offices who have to hire that many more staff to navigate through the insurance companies that they have to do. And as you've just pointed out with your own company, you've had to have another layer of either consultants or employees to work that through.
That's exactly right. And again, the idea is, at the end of the day, we want to make sure people get the health care they need. All these other people are unnecessary. So you want to minimize these unnecessary people, have the doctors, the nurses' assistants, the technicians, the people who have to be there to provide the health care. And after that, you want as few people as possible involved in the process.
Dr. Dean Baker, it was my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for your time. And please keep up the good work. And please keep writing those articles because America needs that voice right now.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on, and I certainly intend to.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was a Dr. Dean Baker. Dr. Dean Baker, I've been following from a long time, and actually I've been to several conferences where he's also attended. He's very well versed in the entire issue of Medicare for all healthcare. Now, I want, for those of you who are constant followers or who watch all the time and notice that Medicare for all is, yes, in fact, one of my pet peeves. It's important, and some may, some folks, well, there we go again. He's talking about Medicare for all again. The reason why is simple. There is an organization called the Partnership for America's Health Care. Okay, the Partnership for America's Health Care. These people are evil, and I don't care to say it otherwise. I will tell them that to their face. It is my opinion, I'm stating it as an opinion, that those people from the Partnership for the American Healthcare System or something to that nature it's called, you cannot help but consider people who would try to frame a message about healthcare for you in the manner they do and not consider it evil, because it is your health, and your health is life or death. Your health is life or death. Dr. Dean Baker, who is the economist who've studied Medicare for all, who has come out in favor of the manner in which Elizabeth Warren is speaking about health care, in speaking about Medicare for all, in not allowing the Chris Matthews or the George Stephanopoulos or all these guys to change the message into a tax question instead of a health and economics question. She has done a perfect job in not doing that. To my Bernie Sanders brothers and sisters, I'm a Berniac. I am a bit disturbed that Bernie answered the question the way that he did, and the reason why is, in effect, they want to pin Bernie as somebody who's going to cost the American citizens more. And while they ask Bernie, are you going to raise taxes? And Bernie says, you bet your life I'm going to raise the taxes, but it's going to help them, save them more, and da-da-da. The media doesn't care about what comes after Bernie saying, yes, I will raise taxes. This plutocracy doesn't care about what Bernie says after that. Bernie is absolutely correct, but they don't care. They have a narrative to push to make sure that private health insurance companies, should I call them private health insurance thugs, stay in business. That's their goal. Their goal is to make sure that the people who are ripping you off. Today I watched a program on TV. I think it was on ABC. Everybody under the Affordable Care Act now gets a yearly what is it called? A yearly checkup. A yearly checkup. Well, what it covers is you go in and you check up for a year. But as in everything that is written by the corporatocracy, there are always back doors to screw you. And the back door in the healthcare business to screw those people who go for annual physicals is that you get your physical. But if there is something that needs a further checkup, you then have to pay for that further checkup. Your insurance that you've been paying for with the Obamacare all along, if you have to go back. So there's this issue with women who have dense breasts, which is 40% of women in this country with something called dense breasts. I guess they have more dense tissue in the breast or something. When they go to the doctor and they do the mammograms, invariably so, they get not a false positive, but they need further study. So they usually need an ultrasound or something of that nature. All these women that have been going for that now, ABC finally pulled it. I'm surprised they put it on ABC. ABC came on and they showed the story, and the woman said, "I went for it's not free. I went for the checkup, my yearly checkup that I'm paying for, that my insurance is supposed to pay for. The insurance that I'm buying is supposed to pay for, and they decided that that I have dense breasts and I have to do it again. And they sent me a bill for $670. So therefore, I went for my well-woman checkup, expecting that my health care is covered by the insurance policy, but now I have to look for $676 in my budget. A woman from California told ABC, I had to find $976 because I have dense breasts. Another woman said it cost me almost $400 because I have dense breasts. If you went in and something else was found, what do? They charge you for coming back. But they don't tell you because they don't want you to know. They want to have the bill first. Private insurance is thievery. And when these people say, but you want to kick 150,000 people off their insurance, 50 million people off their insurance. There's an article, I think it was in Salon or one of these magazines, from a guy, and this is a guy who, professional guy. He says, yes, take my private insurance. Please take it. If you're going to give me something that I can just go to the doctor with a card, take my insurance. I don't care. Take it. Give me the Medicare for all. Dean Baker, a staunch capitalist, Economist Dr. Dean Baker, a staunch capitalist economist. Nope, it doesn't work in healthcare. Give us Medicare for all. The only people that want their own personal insurance are people that are fooled into believing they really have something of value. Your personal insurance is not something of value to you. It is something of value to the insurance executives and to the shareholders of the insurance company. Without that, they don't get your free money. Because remember, whenever you see that insurance agent flying on that jet and he makes $40 million and he's on CNBC, that isn't money that he created a product and started to sell and made money from that product. That is the premium that you are giving him, and he's taking his piece of that premium, paying himself a big salary, giving his shareholders a return on their investment, and whatever is left over, I give you health care. Then he hires a bunch of people whose sole job is to say, sorry, you don't qualify for insurance. That isn't covered. Give me some more money. And then he takes that money and he puts it in his salary. He takes that money and that money goes to his shareholders. People, this is real. This is real. And there is an entire industry out there to fool you. There is an entire industry out there paid for by the plutocracy, both on the left and the right, to get you. On the left side, you have Biden, you have Biden, and you have a couple others. What's her name? The one from Minnesota, I believe. They are there to lie to you, and they are nothing but wards of the plutocracy. Any particular Democrat running on stage, next time you see the debate that comes out against Obamacare that comes out stating facts like, 150 million people will lose their insurance. Remember, people don't care about their insurance. They care about health care. They want to have good health care that they can stay healthy. They don't care how that health care is paid for. We all pay for it. It's not free. We all pay for it. But the narrative out there is to lie to you. Folks, I need you to share these videos. Share the doctor's, Dr. Dean's video that I'm going to also extract. But let's make sure that the American people come from an educated point of view and not from one where the plutocracy is lying to them to have them vote against their own interests. So, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the weekly blog post is one that I posted at the Daily Kos, in which somebody who I respect considered what we said in this blog as, I don't remember the word that he used, but in effect he was saying how, I forgot the word that he used, because he was mad that we said, well, I'll read the blog. The title of the blog post is, "Beware, Medicare for All attacks well orchestrated from foes and, in quotes, friends. They lie." I want to repeat. Beware, Medicare for All attacks well orchestrated from foes and friends. They all lie to you. Medicare for All attacks are coming from all sides. Activists and supporters must not disengage lest they cede ground to those whose sole interests are easy profits from a patently corrupt healthcare system. Republicans taught Democrats and progressives an important lesson. Repetition and message discipline is not only important, but it is also effective. Most importantly, in a vacuum, in a space where a repeated message remains unchallenged repeatedly, it is not even necessary that the message is truthful. In fact, the dissemination of disingenuous messaging flourishes in the repetitious environment. Look, to be clear, math is absolute. Again, math is absolute. It is impossible for the cost of healthcare, just the cost of healthcare, to be more expensive than the cost of healthcare plus multiple executive, plus the cost of shareholder profit, plus the cost of duplicate services like computers, networks, and all that each different insurance companies have to have, plus doctor costs to interface to the very multiple number of insurance companies out there, and a hell of a lot of other costs involved because you have a private payment system that is in competition with each other. You know, they like to say competition, when you're competing with other people's money, it cannot be more profitable than not competing at all. I mean, it cannot be more efficient than not competing at all. Here's what, this is the stupidity they want you to believe, my brothers and my sisters. This is what they want you to believe. Think about this. They want you to believe that if 10 people take your money and compete among each other, they all have to get, those 10 people have to get paid out of the money you give them, and that competing between all those 10 people to pay your bill, that somehow that is more efficient than giving your bill to one person and saying paying it. Because remember, all those 10 people may have to get get on that, for every $100 you give them, they have to get 20 cents or so. Each of them, 20 cents, right? But if one person pays it, only 3%. It is important for us not to fall for the stupidity, not to forget that math is valuable, that math is real. You can't compete with somebody else's money on how to dispose of that same money. If there are more people disposing of your money, it costs more. So, this is an absolute statement. It is impossible for private health care to be less expensive than a single payer for your healthcare system. Your doctors no longer have to have 10 people in the back office tracking down insurance companies, begging them to please allow this procedure. And they have to do it twice, right? They have to call and get permission for the procedure, and after they get the results of the procedure, they have to go get paid for the it is inefficient, it is horrendous, and they are trying to tell you to somehow believe that that can be somehow made more efficient than having one person pay the bill. I mean, it is a lie, and if you believe it, the problem is it hurts us all. I mean, it would be okay if we say, okay, you can do that, we'll do our thing. But that's not how insurance works. We all have to be in it together. So, no fiscally responsible politician who has the interest of the poor and the middle class constituent could continue to support a model designed solely as a method to enrich a few while providing absolutely no service. All they do is they pay a bill. In fact, private insurance adds inefficiency to deliver health care. And that is a paragraph that a friend of mine took exception to. And one of the reasons why is that he writes about the healthcare industry as to whether Obamacare is better than this this particular part of insurance. And what happens is he works within solely the model of private insurance. He does not open himself up to just maybe private insurance makes no sense, and it is exactly what it is. A method to skim money for a few to make a profit on you. The funny thing about it is they make you believe that they're doing something for you. They're not doing a damn thing for you. You are paying them. They are doing an insurance company, a health insurance company does nothing for you. Nothing. They use you as a source of income, nothing more. And in the process, they try to kill you because of two reasons. And that sounds harsh. It sounds harsh, but it's true. And let me explain what I mean by true. It's not like they just want to kill you. Let me give you an example. You're a cancer patient, okay? They don't want to give you particular kinds of drugs. They don't want to give you particular kind of things because you're going to be an expense on them for a very long time. What do you think they're going to do with you? They're going to optimize you. So if there are procedures that would have you die quicker and less expensive, so be it. Because their goal isn't to make you healthy. Their goal isn't to be nice to you. The purpose of a private insurance company is to make money so that the executives can walk off with a huge salary and their shareholders will have a return on their investment. I cannot blame them for wanting to make good money. I cannot blame them. I cannot blame the shareholders who invested in a fraud who wants to make money on the investment that they invested in. I can't blame them, right? Because anybody who invests money wants a return. But where I do blame is I blame our system, our government, for allowing the fraud to exist in the first place. Look, private insurance fiduciary responsibility is to its shareholders and implicitly its overpaid executives. That dictates that it performs two immoral tasks. The first is to market to the healthy as it puts up obstacles that leave those with pre-existing conditions without insurance. Secondly, they make every attempt to deny service. These two acts maximize profits to shareholders and exorbitant salaries to their executives. Profits are not a bad thing if one is providing a necessary service in an efficient manner or one needs to be innovative. Private insurance provide neither. Their innovation consists of finding ways to maximize wealth, extraction for paying a bill. Americans are starting to get it, even if some Democrats and Republicans make believe they don't. Wink, wink. They are wards of the plutocracy. The Hill reported the following. 70% said They supported providing Medicare for all, also known as single-payer health care for Americans, according to a new American Barometer survey. The poll conducted by Hill TV and the Harris X Polling Company found that 42% of respondents said they strongly support the proposal, while 28% said they somewhat supported it. 15% said they somewhat opposed the measure, while another 15% said they strongly opposed it. Think about that. Think about how many people really oppose it. Very small quantities. The results mirrored a Reuters Ipsos poll released in August, which also found that 70% of Americans supported Medicare for all. These numbers are well known. It is no surprise that a Joe Biden-linked firm has started doing the Trumpian thing. Joe Biden, the Democrat, started doing the Trumpian thing, that which is expected of the GOP to confuse Americans about Medicare for all. So Biden is doing exactly the same thing Republicans are doing, exactly the same thing the Partnership for American Healthcare is doing. And here it goes. A poll by a firm linked to Joe Biden is testing messages designed to undercut support among Democrats for Medicare for all, one of the most contentious issues splitting the party's top presidential contenders. The survey commissioned by the centrist Democratic think tank Third Way found that primary voters start off favoring the government-run healthcare system by margins of 70% to 21%, but can be persuaded to oppose it. And that's what they want. They want to see where Americans can be persuaded to not like it. The study showed that Democrats are most swayed by the arguments that the program would impose a heavy cost on taxpayers and threaten Medicare for senior citizens. And that is where Elizabeth Warren's talk must stay the way it is. Their costs will be reduced. Americans will only be against Medicare for all if they think their overall cost, that's what the survey said as well, if their overall cost is higher. The poll was conducted by Lisa Grove of Anzalone Litz Grove Research. Her partner, John Anzalone, is a chief pollster and an advisor to Biden, who opposes Medicare for all and wants to make government-run insurance optional. So you see what Biden is doing now. What they're going to do is they want to find how to tell the story in a manner that people think it's going to cost them more, even though they know better. They know better. They know that it's going to be less expensive, and they're still willing to push the lie. A Democrat. In effect, the above organization is suggesting the same modus operandi of the Republicans. They used it to make Obamacare less than it could have been, and now centrist Democrats are doing the same thing. Centrist Democrats, you need not apply for 2020. Because if a centrist Democrat is somehow makes it through, I don't see how they can, but if a centrist Democrats make it through, look, I'm going to vote for the Democrat. I'm not going to lie to you about it because it will be better than Donald Trump. But I know too many Democrats that will stay home or won't vote at all. I mean, will stay home, not vote at all, or will support something else before they vote for a centrist, because a centrist is no different. On Medicare for all, a centrist is absolutely no different than any Republican. No different. In fact, Donald Trump's healthcare plan that he's likely going to suggest if he's reelected will likely be better than any centrist. And I said it, yes, because the man knows the pulse of his base. Appalachia needs Obamacare more than any Republican would admit. And his voters are in Appalachia. And what do you think he's going to do? What he's going to do is tailor it in such a manner that it is weighted to his people. Because unlike when Democrats get elected where they work for the entire country, he works for his people. Remember that. Remember that. Buttigieg Medicare for all who want it is not acceptable because it opens the door to dump sick people onto Medicare for all using many legal techniques, even if the law dictates that insurance companies take everyone. In other words, they continue to immorally manage risk for profit maximization for the shareholder and executives. It is clear that the purported liberal mainstream media is complicit as well. At one of the debates, ABC's George Stephanopoulos tried to frame Medicare for All as a huge tax increase. He then tried to force Senator Elizabeth Warren to acquiesce to the corporate narrative. She held her ground, and then there was MSNBC's Chris Matthews trying to bully Warren into giving him that coveted soundbite of her saying she would increase taxes for Medicare for All. She did not budge. And Elizabeth, if you're watching the show, I'm going to send it to your people, the interview with Dr. Dean Baker, because you must not give them that soundbite that says you're going to raise taxes. You will be reducing our costs. Do not give them the soundbite about raising taxes. Now Warren, the candidate that has a written plan for everything, said she will release exactly how she will pay for Medicare for All shortly. I hope she gets just as clever, but from a moral perspective, unlike the opponents. I made the following suggestion in a recent blog. Let me repeat that. I hope she gets just as clever, but from a moral perspective, unlike the opponents, I made the following suggestion in a recent blog post. Elizabeth Warren must continue answering this is what I said. Elizabeth Warren must continue answering the question that should be asked and not provide the soundbite that is effectively a virtual lie. Health insurance premiums are taxes not to the government, but to insurance companies. So what she needs to do when she releases her plans, and she says, when they ask, are they going to raise your taxes? The answer is no, because your combined taxes to the private insurance company and to the government will be less. Your combined taxes to the private corporations and the government will be less. We need to learn as Democrats how to create the narrative. Republicans will never say that they raise taxes on Americans. They will never say that, in as much as they do. You know, when they increase fees for the parks, it means that we're not taking it out of general fund, but it's a tax increase. All the different things that cost people more money, it's a tax increase. They just don't call it that. So Democrats need to learn the game. How is the game? Well, it's simple. Elizabeth Warren, when you go out there, they ask you, will you raise taxes? No, I will reduce costs. Aren't they going to pay more taxes to the government? Well, the government is actually comprised of the private sector and the government, because the insurance companies are mandated people are mandated by the government to buy insurance from private insurance companies. So that's a tax to the private insurance. That's a tax as well. So therefore, their combined taxes will be less. It's that simple. No complexity, no complications. We can do it. We must do it. Continuing. Progressives are on the right side of history. Moreover, it is clear the health insurance and health care pilfering is unsustainable. The Partnership for America's Healthcare Future has been investing millions to confuse Americans into opposing Medicare for All. It is clearly not working. The moderate Democrats on the stage, Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, more than most, along with some who did not make the debate stage, seem to be informed by tenets of the above-mentioned organization. It must be made clear that non-support of Medicare for All is anathema to rank-and-file support, and candidates who know better but are simply towing a line will pay at the ballot box. The directional change Bernie Sanders has brought to the Democratic Party and the body politic gives me hope. And I don't like to use the word hope. Gives me resolve is what I should say. But Medicare for All activists cannot go into a lull. They must be out there enlightening and informing their local and national neighbors. It is the requirement of every activist. It is something that we must do. Medicare for All, we must accept as America's healthcare future. So says the blog of the week. My brothers and my sisters, it is essential that we are not hoodwinked by those who would attempt everything they can to do so. We must not allow that. We should not allow that. Most of us will not allow that. So make sure in choosing your candidate, make sure that the first thing you do is cross anybody out that does not recognize healthcare as a right conditioned by a policy based on Medicare for all, which means you don't go through the machinations and expenses of being the source of wealth transfer to rich executives, wealthy stockholders in insurance companies that provide health care but provides no service of value that you could not provide yourself under the tutelage of we, the people. It is essential, folks, that we wake up. Before I really go out, I forgot to give you the option to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright or go to politicsdoneright.com and become a subscriber to Politics Done Right. Please visit politicsdoneright.com and subscribe to the show. We are going to be not only, when I say we, I'm talking about the entire group of activists that are out there on the ground, that are out there on the airwaves, that are out there on the internet working hard, that are out there writing, informing, making sure people are not making decisions against their own interests. But we do need your support. So please go to, I always forget to do this. Please go to politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com. Become a supporter, become a subscriber. We have it you can become a subscriber in many, many different factions. So here we go again. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.